38 million. Fame didn't make me happy. It was the process behind the scenes that taught me something. The truth is, it's hard being human. So pick one choice that was really hard to make and tell the story about it.
This episode of the Free Your Mind podcast was recorded quite a while ago, but I enjoyed this conversation so much I wanted to share it with everyone. Enjoy. And so my name is Echo. Welcome to the Free Your Mind podcast. Today we welcome a friend of mine, beautiful soul and being, healer, life coach, actor, podcast host, retreat banquet host, and viral sensation, Julia Henning. Welcome.
Wow. Thank you so much. It is an honor to be here. And wow, that is a list. When I hear those things out loud, I'm always like, I forget that some of those things are my truth and my experience. So thank you for that really warm welcome. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you for joining me. And I probably didn't even include all of the things like your masters and all the other experiences that you've had. And so my first question is kind of to that point of, how do you describe yourself? How would you take these labels or whatever it is and say, this is who Julia Henning is?
I love this question because I like to kind of flip it on its head first before I give the answer that's expected. Whenever someone asks me what I do, I always like to say, well, for work or for fun? Because what I do brings me a lot of joy and is a lot of fun, but it's also my work. Who I am, I think, is a whole different question. So to answer the question that I know you're asking me, I say that I'm a multi-hyphenate entrepreneur with a focus in self-development and life coaching. My bread and butter is working with individuals and couples, groups, most specifically, in terms of helping them identify the life choices they're making and basically realign those choices and their thought processes in order for them to acquire the life that they really desire. So basically, the shorter version is I'm an entrepreneur and I take my master's in psychology, my certified coaching, my years as an actor and performer, my event hosting. I put it all together and I created a company, basically just under my name. It's literally just I am Julia Henning, which ironically is what exactly we're talking about.
Exactly.
I am Julia Henning is a blend of all of these things. But most importantly on a resume, I would say that I am a life coach and an entrepreneur that focuses on self-development and wellness.
And that can be found at IamJuliaHenning.com.
You got it, baby. And I am Julia Henning on, I believe, just Instagram. I don't think I'm actually on any other social portals. Maybe that's my name on TikTok, but you know what? Don't quote me on that. The place I went viral, I don't even know the name of my handle. So it is what it is. But yes, I am Julia Henning.
And we're going to get to that stuff in a second. But I wanted to ask you, with all of these multi-hyphenate descriptions and the spirituality and also the academic background that you have and the performing experience, focusing on relationships, etc., what do you feel is your main intention?
For me, it's about offering permission. I find that many of the choices I've made in my life came from the hard-won acceptance I had to give myself over what felt right for me. And without sort of embodying this, I'm different, rebel without a cause kind of archetype, there was a lot of rebellion against what was considered normal or maybe average or typical in a lot of my life choices. And what the underlying lesson was in each of those moments in my life was giving myself permission to not just be who I am, but to want what I want and to go for it. So in my business and my coaching and almost everything I do, just by being a friend or a family member, I find that what I tend to embody and offer other people is this permission for you to be yourself. And from that authenticity, accepting and allowing what comes from that. It might be different than what you thought you should want. It might be different than what you had been told you were going to do. And at the end of the day, I think I always ask myself, like, what's the point? what's the point of doing anything? What's the point of being a coach? What's the point of being Julia Henning? And for me, it's about expressing my authenticity so that other people can do the same. It's about giving each other permission to be who we are. And from that, building a life that you're proud of.
Okay. That's very interesting. Very deep. I like it. No, it's very multifaceted.
I am not a shallow person.
No,
You
it's
know
good.
this about me. When do I ever answer something? I was joking about this side note the other day where somebody came to one of my events, and at the end, everyone's sharing something and everyone's getting really sentimental, and it gets to me. And of course, I can never answer something in like a bite-sized, short form answer.
Sure.
And the guy next to me, he's like, wow, okay, this is really deep place. This is really deep. And I just kind of looked at him and I'm like, just let it be, let it happen. Because, I am a very deep person. And I find that that's also sort of my offering is life can be deep and digestible.
Yeah, that's very true. A beautiful way to put it. I'm thinking about, I'm taking that in. Like, yeah, okay. I feel the same way about myself, and the people that I really enjoy connecting with, so that we can go deep in the nuance of many different areas of what life is. On the top of this question or follow-up to that thought is, how do you feel other people in the world, or what do you think that other people in the world can do to continually live with intention?
That's such a great question. What do I think that people can continue? Well, I would say, just to plug myself, work with me as your coach. No, tune in to my social media. No, I find that what people can do to be living with intention is to express themselves. I find that there is this resistance, especially in Western culture, to be vulnerable. And vulnerability comes from such a deep block of wanting to not be seen, because we believe we won't be accepted. We believe that we will be judged. We believe we will not be worthy. So for me, I have found that through expressing myself, whether it be privately in my own close quarters, let's say through, reflection, journaling, meditation, voice memoing, all the way to just talking to your friends, your loved ones, your peers, your colleagues. For me, it's a more public level. It's speaking to groups, speaking to clients, writing, podcasting. It's expressing my experience for me to process it, and thus becoming more aware of what is going on so that I can be in deeper acceptance and live from a place of aligned action. So for me, it's expressing. I think if we keep everything inside, we can get really murky on what the intentions are that we're living off of. We can get really clouded of, what are my values? And I think if you're able to get that out of your body and into the world, it manifests into intention. And I believe in the universe. I believe in source energy. I believe in the power of attraction. And I think that when you put it out, it finds a way to come back in. And I think that is intention. Right? We're moving in tension. Tension is stagnation. It's that resistance. It's that chokehold. It's that pressure. But intention, to me, is living from a soul-centered place. And in order to understand what's going on in our souls, I think we have to be communal beings and express that in some way, whether it's in community with ourselves or the larger collective. So I think you got to talk about your feelings.
That's great. I'm kind of reeling over here because I prepare certain questions. Obviously these are based on what I know of you and knowing you as a friend, and then the answers come in, and it's just like, whoa, okay, completely unexpected, but so much. It's beautiful. Yeah, okay,
thank you.
It's really great. And so, one of the things I've been dealing with in a way is the idea, like you said, of expressing things. And I feel like once we're able to get them out of ourself, even though, maybe it's not out to the world, maybe it's just in a journal or a self video or whatever it is, it gives us the ability to look at it and then to contemplate and reflect on how we see ourselves, looking at it from another dimension sometimes helps us get another view out. I do that with paintings a lot of times too. I'll take a photo of a painting that I'm working on and then look at it from that removed dimension. It helps me see the highlights, the contrast, the color placement in different ways that always helps me finish the thing in a way that I think, okay, that's where I want to get it. But with our feelings and our process is the main thing. I meant to start my YouTube like maybe 10 years ago, 2014, I think, right? And there's so many people that talk about that same process, like, oh, I finally started and thank God or whatever. But it's just interesting to me how so many of us don't feel like our process or our experience is valid enough to share, or who would be interested in hearing what we're doing, or why would someone want to follow my stuff? And I see this with so many people who are starting their YouTube channel or have reached a certain level of success. And they say, just get started, just press play, just record, just share what you're doing. And the process, even when it's dirty or unrefined at the beginning. Yes, that's the part that really creates the vulnerability or the connection with others who haven't really started theirs yet. It's easy to watch something that's super polished and professional, but that's not always even the most enjoyable. Sometimes it is, a guy trying to fix something under the sink and he drops the camera and the flashlight, makes a joke. And, sometimes those are the best ones.
We watch.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
So it's interesting that you put a light on it in that way about sharing the process helps us look at it. And I'm going to stop myself there because one of the things in the podcast that I watch is when the host starts to go on and on and on. I'm like, well, aren't we here to hear the guest?
I have that tendency all the time, and I had to unlearn that. So don't worry. This is a safe space for us to talk. I mean, you got to remind yourself that too, which is exactly what you're saying. This is process. To be in the process, right?
And as we share our process, and we do realize that people, whether they are or aren't interested, it helps us. But sometimes they become super, super interested in something that happens in our life. And so that brings me to one of the questions here that I've just been wanting to ask, because there's so many people out there who aren't just watching social media, they're creating social media. And what is it like to go viral?
Oh, it is very uncomfortable.
Really?
I'm going to say it is very uncomfortable because you don't know what's going to happen, first of all. So it's initially this sort of, I know that there's so many colloquialisms and I can't think of any of them, like flash in the pan situation, right? You don't do something with that outcome. That's usually how it doesn't, sometimes it happens. There's an equation and a formula everyone's trying, but like when I went viral, and we'll talk about how and why that happened, it seduces you really quickly into believing that what you went viral for has meaning, has importance, and you want to, I think most people do, and I'll say I did it at first, you want to capitalize on that. You are now getting all this attention, you're getting all these followers, you're getting all of this energy directed your way. And I remember literally sitting and like watching the numbers grow by the minute, being like, whoa, this is intense. I mean, this is an exponential expansion that like we're just not, I think, accustomed to seeing it. Even though it's on like a screen and a portal on your phone, it's not, so visceral. That capacity to hold that type of attention is really uncomfortable. And I say that because if you go viral for something that is not in association or let's say in alignment with all the other things you maybe do or believe in, you suddenly are now known for this one thing and sort of pigeonholed in your viralness, in your success, in your like awareness as this thing. So for me, that was really uncomfortable because I was now known literally internationally as the girl with the crawl space. And we'll talk about that story, I'm sure, in a second. versus being known as a life coach or an entrepreneur or an actor. And when I was trying to maybe capitalize off of the viralness to bring attention to the other things that I was doing, I made a podcast about this moment so that I would at least have eyes on the podcast. There was a lot of hate. There was a lot of negativity that I was receiving for not basking in the essence of the viral video, not staying committed to that type of content and that type of story and going deeper on that video. And I would say that it took one day. I took one day to look at the comments. And I'm not going to lie, and this is like a little bit of a trigger warning. I mean, it's very real, the ideations that come up when you look at what strangers say to you on the internet. And this is me like saying I've got enough education and enough, self-development, self-wellness practices to keep my shit in order. This was scary. I mean, this was a very deep, like, wow, I can only imagine the people that are doing this on a constant basis. And it's a big reason why I've actually been really hesitant with social media. We came up when Instagram and, what's the other one? Snapchat, Facebook, like we were at the beginning of that when you were showing like your holidays, and like you were showing your college days. It wasn't about promoting yourself. It wasn't about talking about your achievements. It wasn't about gaining favor by the internet. It was just this portal in which we were able to express ourselves. So as it became this marketing tool, it's crazy that you become a commodity. People were demanding a product out of a video I made on a whim. And I will just say, if you go to my TikTok where this video was posted, I have like 77,000 followers. They were beaming and boosting my video watches, exponentially. I had like millions of views on this thing. But then I started talking about like life coaching after that. And you see the views just increasingly go down so much so that like, I think it was like a month ago, I posted a video about being a healer. And this was truly just a test, just a joke to see what would happen. I went from like 100,000 views to like 400. And that's still a lot of like engagement. But when you go from having, the top to now having like an average, if you will, amount, it's really uncomfortable. You start to question your worth and your value. So I would say it's cool to go viral because in the moment it's happening, you think that you're awesome. And then as soon as the light fades, you realize it really has no meaning and it has no value and it does nothing for your life other than bring more negative attention to an aspect of yourself that was just a 10-second video. So it was still awesome in the fact that like people were talking about it. I had a lot of attention and I was going home to like, the Midwest and people in a restaurant would recognize me and my parents would be like, what is going on? And I would say, too bad this isn't for, the play I did in Los Angeles or the company I built. This is about me finding a hole in the ground and me taking a video of it.
Right.
Like that's kind of nuts, but it was cool in that, I was featured in People magazine. I was featured in like Variety and The Sun, and I was on all of these cool portals. So it gave me exposure, but I would be lying if I said it did anything for what I believe in.
Well, you're awesome regardless of whether that happened or not, right?
Thank you. I mean, I know that. I know that now. I know that now. But it took going viral, and I say this to a lot of people where I'm like, be careful what you wish for, right? Because you might want all of this attention, but sustaining that is really challenging. And it takes truly, I think, a lot of resilience to, I don't even read the comments. I'm sure that people are saying negative things still. But at the end of the day, I mean, I did read it actually once recently where I did see that people were saying things like, oh, she's just trying to capitalize on the success of the other thing. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. Why wouldn't I? Wouldn't you? Like,
as the first year they're telling you to do that, and then they're complaining that you're doing that. Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, I believe, welcome to being a celebrity. I can imagine.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, because the last I looked, it was over 3 million likes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means the views have got to be, even exponential higher than that.
Mm-hmm. I think it was 38 million.
Oh, I mean, that's...
Can you imagine trying so hard? Let's just say, like right now, I'm writing a book. This book will be out by the end of the year. We'll talk about it later. If I had been writing that book and was able to capitalize on that exposure at that time, what that might have done for like book sales and for public exposure, that one episode of the podcast that I linked to this experience had the most listens and yet also had the most hate, because I wasn't really talking about anything other than going viral and how crazy it was. And people were like, we don't care about your other episodes of self-development and healing. We care about hearing about the crawl space. And you're sort of left with this notion of like, damn, 38 million views on finding a crawl space, but not on these accomplishments that I had worked my ass off for. It was a very strange experience, but again, a very cool one to say that I got, I went viral. Happens to a couple people.
Like for you to go through that and to get to the point afterwards where it's like, well, Jim Carrey had talked about this at a certain point. He said he wishes that everybody could have fame, at least for a moment or for some time, or all the money that they wanted, in order to see that that's not really what it's all about. There's just a cap to that. It's not truly what it's all made out to be, and that still you have to reside every day and night with yourself. And that's why you have a lot of, rich people necessarily, I mean, I'll say, but, a lot of different people who have a lot, and they're not happy, because it doesn't equate, I guess it doesn't equal itself in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So you got those two factors of people wanting to grab a quick look at a flash in the pan story that creates this viral success, as opposed to some work that they might be able to do to enhance their own life. It's the distraction versus actual improvement. And then your own process of experiencing this thing that's so unexpected and far out, and then it disappears quickly, and finding a way to resolve that so that you're moving forward with what you're doing in the same amount of gusto or more, even unattached from this thing that's happened. I find it interesting that, for so long people were talking about, you should capitalize on this, da, 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 and then you do to some degree, and then they might, be negative toward you about doing it.
Mm-hmm. It goes back to what I initially said. Like, I had to give myself permission in that entire process to go with it. I mean, I literally was sitting with friends when this happened, and we were all just like, should we make another video? Like, it was just this moment of being like, do we run with it, or do we just let it be this thing? And a lot of people actually, I don't talk about this, a lot of things. There's 2 points I want to make. One, pretty much without a doubt, I'm going to say it's probably going to last for a little bit longer. When I get asked to do any interviews or videos, it always comes up. I mean, they want to know about the crawl space, and it's not always about asking me about my experience of it. It's, well, what about the crawl space? They want the story. What I find interesting is I gave people the story. I actually completely highlighted most everything about what I knew in those videos. What I was told later on was the one video that went viral truly is I'm not even in the video. It's just me opening up like a crawl space door and seeing this portal in the edge of my house, and people being like, oh my God, like this is insane, like crazy. I mean, it's a spooky video. When I then went forward and started putting myself on camera and kind of amped up the entertainment of the story, people were following along and people wanted more. So I actually was able to understand that, yes, there was this sort of flash in the pan, unrelated video that got everyone's attention, but I was keeping the attention by being myself, by being on camera, by being sort of the conduit between here's the story, but like, here's me playing it out. And a lot of people said, they were like, I stayed tuned because I wanted to hear your experience and your interpretation. Like, I was watching you. And I remember this is funny. I don't really talk about this a lot, but like I've had a lot of people tell me throughout my life that I should have my own reality show, which I feel like, if you know me at all and like you hear some of my life
Absolutely.
stories,
Yeah.
it 100%. It's just like some of my life is just, you can't write this stuff. And so I remember thinking around this time, a lot of my friends were like, oh my God, like you need to start vlogging. You need to be on YouTube. You need to start showing people like your life. And me thinking, I'm not sure how to do that. I have this reason to do that right now, right? I'm telling you a story and people are paying attention and they're watching and you're getting a sense of who I am. I'm entertaining you. But if it was just me alone, just doing my normal everyday thing, would people be watching? Would they care? Would it be as interesting, as enticing? And I've come to find it took me a really long time to try doing that. I'm doing that more so on social media, that in fact, people are interested, people are watching. But like you made the point, it's more interesting to talk about something distracting than it is to talk about something meaningful.
Mm.
And that's really hard.
Yeah.
That's a really hard, I had to give myself permission to accept that people would rather be entertained than they would changed.
Yeah.
That was a long-winded story to basically say, how do we get people's attention and how do we sustain it? That's
Right.
what it taught me.
It really speaks to the difference between those people who you might call seekers. I would, consider, you and I in that boat, where you might be going into social media or any form of information in order to improve something, learn something, add to your skill set, as opposed to just numb out and be distracted and shut down. And I think we probably still do that at times as well in our own ways, but it's very easy to approach something that is just a distractionary, surface level entertainment versus, okay, I'm going to engage in this content, maybe even take notes or apply it into my life in some way. And there's a place for both, I suppose, but I think what we're working on doing is hopefully helping people engage more fully to help the meaning of their life and the purpose of their life and connect with that. And like you said, give themselves permission to do that, to live intentionally and to live fully, not just for the camera or for the crowd, but for themselves and for what they're really here to do.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
You know what's funny about that too, Echo, is when I did the podcast episode about the video, of course, I sort of led with the marketing of it as being like the episode about the crawl space. So it sort of promised this notion that I was going to go deeper into the story and give you more details and sort of like a crime podcast, give you the behind the scenes. But really all I ended up talking about was that it became the podcast is called The Permission Portal. It became a portal of permission for me because it gave me exposure. I had eyes on me to then talk about things I cared about. And whether people liked it or not, or accepted it or not, I was still getting high volumes of views and engagement on other types of content because at that time I had their attention. So even though people were tuning into that podcast to hear more of the story, it really actually was, hey, what this taught me was I now have permission to be more vulnerable and more in exposure because you've chosen to watch me. And the crawl space became sort of this allegory of opening up the cave and coming out of the cave, literally, and being like, whoa, like this became an opportunity. It wasn't just a crazy occurrence. So I tend to believe we have to make meaning out of things for there to be meaning. I made meaning out of this crazy occurrence by seeing it as an opportunity. And to this day, I think that still when people ask me about the crawl space, I just laugh and sometimes I'll just tell people like, oh, it was all fake, just to kind of be like, just to really see the shock on their faces. And then to most people, I'd be like, no, yeah, it really did happen. And I mean, what you see is what you get. That was it. So that
Were you
was the
expecting to
story.
find Plato down in there?
I mean, didn't I in some way?
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
that's true.
didn't I in some way?
This is good because we can get into a flow. We could probably talk forever, but also I like to, gosh, I don't know. I've had so many phone calls and conversations and even chats with people. I'm like, oh, we should have been recording that. Because like you said at the beginning, as soon as the camera goes on, well, here I am preparing the podcasting with the voice and the eloquence and all that, you know, and I want it to be just, hey, what's up, friend? We're having a chat. You know, even the way that I'm projecting and that a lot of people do, it starts to shift in a certain way. And I like to get into that comfortable, true voice of who we are, both the audible aspect of it, but the content as well, where it's, you know, if we were sitting by the fire chatting, that we're just, you know, having a talk. That's the best part. I think that's the part that then becomes more true for the viewer as well. And it's funny you're talking about capitalizing on this, because I didn't really see that that's what I was doing by asking you this question. In a way, it's got to be there because that's part of what it is. Because for anyone that watches this now, I can put out a clip or I can show like, hey, this person who I'm speaking to went viral, and that is interesting for people. And I never really meant it to be that, but then it will be that regardless because of what it is. And that's, I don't know, those sort of paradoxes I love just to consider in how much mystery is in our world, whether we plan for it or we don't, whether we mean for it or we don't. And to find that space that you're talking about where we're creating meaning in our life truly is what it's all about. Like, what's the purpose of life? Well, it is what you create, what you make of it. To me, I think that's all that it really is. And we can go so many different directions in every quantum thought, every quantum moment. We can choose. I mean, it's really like writing. You're writing a book right now. I'm sure you've written other things, maybe a text to that special someone when every word is carefully thought of. And when you're writing the book, it's the same way, especially if it's a story. Every single typed letter and word starts to create the possibility of a different narration of our life.
Yes, it's very overwhelming. It is extremely overwhelming.
So how do we just push that aside and just go in the flow as well?
Do you want me to answer that real quick?
Why
because
not?
I'm literally dealing with that right now. You know, I right before we got onto camera, I said to you, like, I've been having a really, I won't say tough time, but it's been really apparent to me that I've been having a challenging time focusing on the positive aspects versus sort of harboring on maybe the more hardship aspects of life. When I have been in process of writing this book, I believe that the way you do one thing is most the ways you do everything. And in the process of writing this book, I really just wanted to see if I could do it. I mean, when I started this, it was really just, could I do it? When I then was given a book deal and a publishing company was like, we're going to publish this for you, it suddenly was out of my hands. It became something that had to be done. There wasn't really the choice of if and when I feel like it. It was, you've got 6 months.
Right.
In my head, I had this vision of what that was going to look like, right? I was going to wake up every morning, light a candle, have a beautiful cup of espresso, and just write for hours as it poured out of me with ease, right? Yeah, that's not what happened. In fact, I've had to confront so many defense mechanisms and so many blocks that I harbor that have shown up in other places that I have healed and worked through, but had never shown up because I've never done this before. So how do we sort of get into that flow and not be overwhelmed at the insurmountable multitudes of pathways and opportunities? How do you make it simple, right? How do you make it easy? I think it goes down to like, well, what's the truth? What's the truth of anything? When you're writing that text message to, you know, someone that you need to break up with, or you're emailing your boss, or you're writing a book on how life can be easy, paradox time, ready? You have to embrace the hardship of confronting the truth. I could spend hours choosing all the different stories in my life that emulate it's hard being human. Every single day, there's a story of how it's hard to be human. So which one is the one that is best served in this in this chapter? Well, what's the truth? You kind of have to just decide there's no perfection. There is no one way. There is no right way. Anything will get you the outcome you want if you just decide this is my truth. So I want to kind of pare that down a little bit, and I'll use the example of like texting your lover. We try to find the perfect words to break someone's heart. How can we just mend and soothe and ease that inevitable process, that inevitable pain? But if we just accept, it's going to be painful. It's going to be hard. So what's the truth? This is not my truth anymore. This is not serving me. This is not my highest good. This is not in alignment. This is not feeling easy. We then bypass all the beautiful distractions to get to the truth. And people appreciate the truth much more than we give them credit for. Think about like when you're fighting with somebody, and instead of saying, oh, I think that you've been trying really hard, and I see that you've been showing up, and I really appreciate it. People actually appreciate, respect, and admire when you're like, this isn't working for me, and I'm going to cut this time in half it's going to take to try to help you and to try to heal you by just giving you the truth. The truth sets you free. So in writing a book, I would say I've had to get to what my truth is a lot faster than writing for the collective masses. Well, is this going to be good for everybody? Does this work for everybody? Is this going to be accepted by everybody? No, what's the fucking truth? The truth is it's hard being human. And making choices is always going to be hard. So pick one choice that was really hard to make and tell the story about it. And I literally did that today in this chapter. So that's why I'm bringing it up, because it's hard. It's really overwhelming. And we stop ourselves. We really get in our way when we try to make it more than what it is. Just like you're saying with the painting. If it's not working, take a step back. What's the truth of the painting? Go back and paint the truth. Same thing with writing and words. I think with self-development, we always tell ourselves, I'm not ready. When I do this, then I can do it. When I have more money, when I have more time, when I'm healthier, when I get more sleep. We're distracting ourselves because there's so many possibilities. There's so many options. And I would just want to note that when you said before, well, just start, just do something. That's really fucking hard. How do you just start something when you have so many options, right? So what's the truth? What do you want to feel? And I always go back to that. And I know that, again, long-winded answer, but how do you write? How do you do anything when there is quantum amounts of possibilities? How do you want to feel? And which one of those options is most likely going to get you the closest to that?
Yeah.
Did I answer the question?
Yeah, maybe a few other ones that I don't have to ask now too. So thank you on that. I definitely utilize what you said at the end there too is very helpful, I think, for people like us who are creating, our own path and hoping to help people with that. I believe it's Tim Ferriss. He was the author of 4 Hour Work Week, and he's got the very popular email list. And he talked about what one thing, if done first, helps everything else. And so when we're swimming in all of these different options of what to focus on and what to create, where to put our time and energy, I often swim or tread water more than an hour, more than a week probably. And somehow I'll find my way back to that question and be like, okay, right. What do I need to get done? And then for me, it comes back to writing or whatever it is, because that's where the content comes from, is what is the idea? Whether it's a book or a series of bits of information for social media or a course or whatever it might be. Painting. There's there's certain books that are almost like codes or keys. If I sit down and read a page of this one particular book, all of a sudden, all these pieces will show up. And it's like, okay, and I don't even have to focus on the book really then. It just puts me into the right space to reconnect with what I'm meant to be doing in that moment. Yeah, it's a strong book. And there's plenty of them out there like that for many different people, depending on where someone's at and what their interest is, and what their creative process is, for sure. So you have a book deal that's going to be published, and you're working on releasing that, or at least completing it this year yet. Is that correct? And what sort of other...
That is correct.
Okay. That's amazing. Congratulations. That's really, really cool.
Thank you.
It's
fucking crazy. I'll just say that really quick. It's really fucking crazy, because I want to just give everybody this moment for a second. I put this on my vision board because I only do one vision board a year. I'm not someone who does it all the time, but in January, New Year's happens. I do a little vision board. I put like some vibes on there. I'm not someone who's like wads of cash and like beaches. I'm like, there's some specific things that keep coming up. So I'm going to put them on there. For this year, I kept putting book writing things. Like, it was like, you're going to be someone's favorite author, or like chapter 1, or me, like a woman signing books or something. And I was like, why does this keep coming forward? Why is this what's on my mind? 3 months later, I end up at a seminar that my friends set me up with, because we both admired this one author who writes books about writing books. And about a year ago, she was like, you have to write a book. And I was like, I know, I'm going to write one day. I don't know when, but I will. We get in touch with this author. I end up at a seminar. By the end of that seminar, they were like, you need to like be under this imprint. And then I had a book deal. And it was like, oh my God, you have about 6 months to get this book done, written and edited and published, to be purchased like online. And I was like, whoa, that's a crazy manifestation to come into the world. So I just want to say thank you for that. And yes, it's wild. It's wild.
And no way that you could have necessarily tied that all together, or like set down, like, I will go to the thing and then this is going to happen. And then step 3 will be this. Nope. And then it just shows up.
It just showed up.
That's pretty cool.
It just showed up. And it was interesting too, just to say real fast, like, again, I had this vision of what writing a book was going to be. It wasn't that. And I'm really grateful, actually, because I'm sure I'm about to answer a question you will probably need to ask me, but here we go anyway. I had a different idea for the book I actually wanted to write first. This was the idea that sort of catapulted getting, I think, the publisher's attention. When I then went in to start writing it, it actually occurred to me that there was another book idea that was sort of demanding to be written first. And that this book idea was more, in essence, the like curriculum of my coaching, the curriculum of my business. It wasn't as personal. And in needing to write this book, kind of, this relates to what you were just saying. What's the first thing you need to do the thing you need to do?
Right.
Somehow, ironically, this first book has to be written in order to find the process to write the book that lives in my heart. And when I explain that to people, and they're like, you're writing one book to learn how to write another book. I'm like, yes, this one book that could leverage my professional enterprise, that just needs to be written so that I can write the book about how I view the world and how I feel about it, because that's the legacy book. Right. That's the book I care about. So it's been an interesting experience.
That might be as well after you're able to launch to a new level or a higher degree, then more people will be called or interested in that personal aspect of things for you as well.
Exactly.
That's cool. Okay. So your sort of curriculum focused process book was not what you originally planned on writing, but it moved itself into the front of the line and said, this first, then we'll get back to the memoir or whatever you
literally, yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yes. 100%. And it's cool because the book is called It Gets to Be Easy If You Let It. I won't give the subtitle yet because that's the kicker. But it gets to be, I mean, that's the whole, when people kind of look to me and you said, like, what is it that you offer? It's permission. But that permission underneath it is like, yeah, life gets to be easy if you let it. It comes with work. It comes with, doing things. But once you sort of figure out that if you're living in alignment with yourself, life can feel easy. Suddenly the world opens up and things start to happen in a way that make you feel like you should be in reality television. But
get your copy of It Gets to Be Easy If You Let It, Julia's best-selling book, from her website or from Amazon. The link is in the description.
It's interesting that, the universe, to me, I took that as a sign, as it demanded me to be able to tell people, this is how I got to that memoir, that legacy book. This had to happen before I could tell you why this matters.
Right.
And I mean, again, who would have thought that it would have taken writing a how-to book in order to write a what's the point book?
I love the clarity that you shared with that. The reality is, you actually have to sit down and write it, like, all the time.
Yeah, I didn't realize that part, honest to God.
I actually have to sit and write the book.
Well, thank you for saying that, though, because I really, again, Echo, I don't think it's a coincidence that we're having this conversation today specifically, because today, coming out of my birthday and all these really big life things that have been happening, like, I literally post on my story today, me talking about, like, I'm not where I want to be with the book. I'm working with a coach who's been helping me just stay accountable. She doesn't do any of the writing for me or with me. She's just like checking in. How are you feeling? What's the process? I've got, the editors, the publishing team, the guy who runs the imprint, everyone kind of being like, hey, like just checking in, and me having every week to be like, yeah, I didn't hit my goal. Like, yeah, I'm not where I want to be. And it increasingly amplifying the belief that I'm like, I'm not good at this. I'm not capable. I'm not worthy. This isn't a success. This is a failure. And I sort of had to kind of hit such a wall of depression, like such a wall of like failure, to embrace and give myself permission that I'm like, you've just never done this before. You're a beginner. And the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. Every time you've done something for the first time, you either fucking thrive and succeed at it, or you quit and you fail. And I was like, what's the medium of this? Where's the new process, right? This is a new process for me. Did you wake up every single day and be diligent in writing your pages and getting the chapters done when you said you would? No. But I'm not giving up. I'm not quitting. I'm under contract. I have to get it done. So like accepting that the quality of this process hasn't been the one that I've loved, I think will enable me the next time I do this to do it differently. And kind of highlighting it back to like, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. It's like, I usually have to fail in order to learn how to succeed. I'm not someone who is like, I'll just do it one step at a time and I'll become better and better. I'm like, nope, I'm going to completely, utterly do it wrong the first time so that I know my capacity for feeling that failure. So now I'm less afraid and I can do it the most loving way.
Yeah.
If you will.
It almost seems like the adulting way to do it, because it's not something that's naturally easy and awesome for you. And it's not something that is just where you can give up because it isn't natural and easy. It's in the middle. It's like a whole bunch of tiny little quittings and a whole bunch of tiny little keeping goings. And it just, back to the grind again and again and again.
It's kind of like parenting is what I'm sort of understanding. And I don't have a child, so forgive me for this, but I can imagine, being pregnant with the idea and being like, this is how it's going to be. And like, I'm so excited. And, I have this wonderful thing that's lighting me up with all this inspiration and joy. And sometimes fear, but then it's birth and you're like, okay, I have to do this now every single day, or at least this isn't going anywhere. I can't quit this. So how am I going to embrace those days when I was a terrible parent or didn't have the answers or didn't know what to do or failed my child? I have to wake up and get over that and try again and keep going.
Yeah.
And eventually, you know, that child might not be everybody's cup of tea, but hopefully it's kind enough that, like, you know, nobody hates it. And I find that my book, you know, I'm like, oh my God, I'm sitting here being like, does this make sense? Is everyone going to like this? Versus just being like, no, not everyone's going to like it, but I'm not setting out to offend anybody by creating it. So let's hope that, you know, one day we can be happy for trying. God, it's been tough. It's a tough process. I'll tell you right now.
That is a creative process, I guess, balancing between what you feel like you want to express as an artist. And if it becomes commerce focused, then the art sort of, it can still be in there, but it's not, you know, like, oh, the true artist might, oh, you sold out or whatever. And some of these things have to be a balance because we've got to provide for ourselves as artists or as creatives. Mm. And that's, I think, the eternal struggle. The main thing that I've always seen in as being an artist, or maybe not always, but as I've grown to do a lot of different art and just experience of it, is capturing what that idea is, whether it's a song, a riff, a painting, you know, a logo, whatever it is that comes into the mind or in the heart. And then now it's outside of me. It's not inside of me anymore.
I mean, it's true. I mean, again, it kind of goes back to intention. It's no longer inside of you. It's, you know, your intention is to write something with all this meaning and this impact and this effect. And then as you do it, you start realizing, oh crap, but that's not what this is. That's not what it wants to be. That's not what it needs. And again, I sort of see this going back to parenting, like your intention might be great, but you can't demand of a living thing your agenda. You can only try to shape it and give it as much of you as you possibly can. I've found that with anything, I mean, when I was in theater and I was creating shows or, you know, doing voiceover work even, or even producing events, you sort of have this vision. And I've always been pretty good at making sure that most of that vision comes to life. But there's always that moment that people are always come up to me and they're like, it's okay. Everything's going to be great. People are going to be happy. Stop stressing out. And I'm like, I can't, because it's me, the artist, going, you know, this is art living and breathing. It's subjective. I will never let go. It will never be perfect. It will never be perfect. And you know what? I wonder, kind of, I'm going to side note saying this, like in every creative process I've ever attached myself to, permission is the number one ingredient for you to try anything, for you to put yourself out there, for you to, you know, fail a million times and succeed at the one. But at the end of the day, nothing is ever perfect. And despite what people might think and what I put into the world, I still operate under the belief that it could be. I'm a very idealistic person. That works against me, mostly because it makes me very self-critical. However, it also elevates me to always become more of what I need to be to give these ideas and these intentions more of myself. I never hit perfection, but there's always a moment in every single creation where you're like, there it is. That's what it was. That's what it was supposed to be. I got it for just a second. And that has to be enough. And when I'm working with clients as a coach, you know, they come in and they're like, I want to make a ton of money. I want a new relationship. I want to be a different person. They'll come to me most of the time being like, in the 6 or 8 months that I work with you, I want this at the end. And I always kind of go, okay, great. You want to start a business. Okay. So in 8 months, I can teach you how to do that and give you the class on how to do that. Or I can teach you who you are. I can show you and guide you back to who you are so that you remember that perfect outcome is only going to come when you embrace being messy, when you embrace being human, when you embrace the process of creating that art, right? And for one moment, usually in a coaching session, they will feel that, oh, this is what I wanted help with. This is what I wanted to feel. And it's fleeting. And they think then, oh my God, I'm still having to do the work. Yeah, you have to make the choice every day to show up for your artwork every day. And maybe the outcome will look like something you thought it was going to be in the beginning, or maybe it'll be something better and someone will pay you $1 million for it. But who knows?
That's pretty awesome.
But again, like, I feel like this is why you and I connect, because it's like, have we cracked the code to the question I think we're almost asking in some of this, where it's like, when there's so many pathways, how do you just walk to completion through one? Especially when there's so many ways it can be done and you've never done it before. So eventually one day when you finish that book, you're going to be like, that one book maybe took me 2 or 3 years. And the next time I do this, I know that now about myself. So now I can kind of mitigate and plan for that.
Yeah.
Right? Is that the key to becoming an expert or a master at something versus being upset that we didn't do it the way we thought we were going to?
That is the mess. I mean, what you're talking about is the mess.
Mm-hmm.
Not following the schedule to a T, not getting the result that you planned on in the daily schedule, all those aspects of it, and having to go back and not really liking it maybe the way that you thought you were going to. And then sometimes, yeah, that moment of perfection or that sentence or paragraph that's, whoa, I wrote that. That came from me or through me or whatever. That's part of the mess, and it's good and bad. But I think for people who are on our own path or creating our own path, when the clarity at times disappears and it's not exactly known what to do or how to do it, then we're really on our own path. That is blazing the trail. That's choosing the path not taken and making your own. That because I don't know what to go. I don't know what do I. That's because you're making your own path out of the field. That's the cool part about it.
I literally just wrote about that today. It's just so in synchronicity. Like, that was literally the chapter I just finished right before we got onto this phone call. So I'm like, yep, here we are. Lesson learned. Like, the universe is like, no, you're doing it the way you were supposed to. Actually, your ego told you that it had to be this. Your thoughts told you that it was supposed to be like that. Society mirrored to you that this is the right way, but this is your way. And one day you're going to get on a stage and tell people, guys, it took me all fucking year to write this damn book. And I was scared every time I told everyone on my team that I wasn't, I didn't hit my goal every week. But at the end of the day, I got it done. I did it. I did what I said I was going to do. I just didn't know how that was going to look.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's great. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for this. Like, whether this makes it in here or not in any way, like, thank you for that conversation on our own, because I needed that.
Yeah,
today.
You're welcome. And thank you. So, because usually within this world of podcasting or information, we'd like to give credibility. Why would someone listen to what we have to say? And I know that you have a master's and your coaching business, and you talked earlier about being in it for relationships and helping people move together and move forward in their own lives. How would you describe your experience with relationship or your master's, or how would you put that into some way?
Interesting. I have to sort of wrap my head around what is the most important thing about answering that. I would say, why should people listen to me, or why should people come to me? What's my credential? Well, yeah. I mean, I have a piece of paper that says I did the work to learn how the brain works and how the mind works. I did the programs that apparently certify us to be able to give other people life advice or life perspective. I got the piece of paper that said, I choose this, and someone decided I got to do it. So I have credentials. I have the credentials that, based off the mass collective, certify me to have an opinion on this.
Okay.
Get that out of the way.
Yeah.
The deeper reason is my zone of genius is expression in relationships, what I'm good at and what I love. So whenever anybody's trying to figure out what they should do in life, I direct them to their zone of genius. What do you love and what are you good at? What do those two things overlap? This is often what people compliment you on, or what they seem to think you're sort of an expert on. My life experiences positioned me to have a lot of time and focus on my relationships. I'm pretty candid about the fact that growing up, I was in a really privileged situation to be able to focus on self-development and self-expansion. I had a lot of time to think about myself. In doing so, it gave me the opportunity to really focus on my relationships. A lot of my life was really garnered and focused and centered on my friendships and my love life and my family dynamics and my mentors and my enemies, like all these things were
Sure.
really prevalent aspects of my life experience. Whereas I was seeing in my peers, they were focused a little bit more on the traditional like life pillars, right? Like go to school, get a degree, get a job, make
Right.
money, maybe get married, have a kid. For me, it was like, but what's the inner workings of all of these things? Why do we, what is it to have generational trauma? And like, why are your chosen friends your tribe? Like, it was just what I was curious about. I was more interested in understanding dynamics than I was understanding the American dream. And well, I won't say the American dream. That's pretty prevalent in most places, but we're in Western culture, so we'll call it the American dream. When I had to decide what I was going to do as a professional, when you become an adult, you have to do something. Originally, I was going to be a philosopher, went to school for philosophy and realized, I can't sit on a rock and just talk about my thoughts about life forever. Who's going to pay me to do that, right? I'm supposed to contribute to society. So then I did the next best thing. I became an actor and decided, well, I'll express myself and I will perform and people will come and listen to stories and they'll be moved by these dynamics that they're seeing on stage. But I wasn't satisfied enough with the fact of telling other people's stories. I wanted to talk about my own. So I focus on relationships in psychology. I got a master's degree in psychology with a focus on marriage and family counseling, mainly because I had a lot of problems with relationships. I struggled really deeply in relationships because I was really self-aware. And I think being so self-aware was this blessing and a curse that I was sort of almost forced to have to examine the relationships around me in order to evolve and become the person I was meant to be. How do you monetize that? How do you capitalize on that? You study the profession that focuses on analyzing relationships and analyzing the mind. So I got a master's. I went to grad school. For me, though, being a therapist, I'll just say, was a little bit unfulfilling because it focuses very much on a diagnostic, analytical observation of the past. What I found I was more enlightened and motivated by was the immersive support of becoming something, not focusing on how we got there. And when I got certified as a coach, I was excited at the fact that I got to be a bit more involved in the process. I wasn't just an active listener. I was getting to be an active participant in someone's healing process. So I focus on relationships because the relationship to yourself is what motivates and drives everything. If you do not have a relationship with yourself, you don't have a lot. I'm just going to say it. Maybe that's just an opinion and a perspective, but if you don't have some relationship to yourself, ask yourself, what is the quality of the life you're living? Are you living in alignment with your values? Do you have values? Are you happy? People always, whenever I meet somebody for the first time, I shock them by asking, nice to meet you. Oh, I'm Julia. What do you do? Okay, get it out of the way. Are you happy? And you'll see people literally like stiffen, and some people will like bask in the opportunity to talk about it, and other people will really resist and judge me. But relationships at its core, I was so invested in the relationship I had with myself. I was so curious about myself that only could then translate and evolve into being curious and invested in the relationships around you. And when then I had felt like I had done that long enough, I then made it a profession so that I could do it for other people. And everything, whether it's with people, things, ideas, places, everything is a relationship. So the ability to examine and reframe those relationships is what I think makes meaning and causes change. And we are human to evolve. So if we're not understanding those relationship dynamics, what's the point?
Right. Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's a lot. So let me ask you about sort of the spiritual or the holistic aspects of your personality, and how do you blend that with your degree and your coaching, or how would you describe that?
I am a spiritual person with a grain of salt. The self-awareness I speak about in myself is a tool I use for people to understand that I'm speaking with humility and a lot of humble awareness. When I was younger, to understand myself, I sought out tools such as astrology, numerology, personology, these methods that gave me insight into the type of person I might be. And when you're not receiving that from, the primary sources of care that you might have in your life, or the education system, or the work that you do, you have to find an outlet to understand yourself. For me, it was through spirituality in a sense. But I'm also a realist as much as I'm an idealist. And I understand that, especially in our modern day, spirituality is sometimes met with this stigma. There's a judgment of, what we can't prove, what we don't have evidence for. Should we believe it? Can we believe it? I like to operate from a place of faith. In my experiences, I have found that the evidence of synchronicity is something you cannot ignore. Whether you want to put meaning on whether that's an external source of all knowing and all, truth, or math, this quantum physics type of learning, type of seeing the world, either way, something exists that's bringing these things all together, right?
Right.
So when I went into becoming an entrepreneur, it was really imperative for me to bring that faith into my curriculum. The embodiment of that belief is permission to let all things exist, to be open to the idea that whether or not you think it's right or wrong or true or false, it exists. To deny evidence that exists in our world, to me, that just doesn't make any sense. Whether you maybe consider yourself holistic or not, being open to all ideologies, to me, is what being spiritual is all about. There is a spirit and an essence. There is an energy to all things. You don't have to hold a crystal and chant every morning in order to be in the presence of some of these crazy life experiences that everybody endures. So when I was thinking about being a coach, there's a lot of coaches, a lot of women that really embody this sort of like spiritual goddess, yoni, women forward kind of archetype. I live that way. Yes. Like I definitely go to retreats in the jungle and wear my loose clothing and dance under the moon. Like, yes, hell yes, in fact. But I'm also have 2 feet on the ground in a way where I'm like, there's got to be a pragmatic, digestible format for the spirituality. Because if you can get people to see that even if they don't identify with it, it's there, we then have more at our disposal to work with to get you the outcomes you want. So when I was coaching, I was noticing everyone has their own style. Everyone does it differently. It's all the same shit. I'm sorry, but it's all the same stuff. I'm not teaching anybody anything that nobody else knows. But my perspective of it is what makes it unique. It's what makes people want to work with me. So when I'm coaching somebody, I'll pull an oracle card and they'll say, wow, that was so cool that you did that. And I'll think, right. Did it change your life in multitudes of ways? No, but it gave you a different perspective, one that you might not have chosen before. And because I have belief in these tools, you now are open to their impact and their effect. So let me once again take my long-winded answer and say, I think all ideologies, all methods are important to incorporate. There is no right way. For me, what feels the most aligned, what lights me up, what feels the most nourishing is to approach my business, my work in a holistic manner, which basically just means I give space for the emotions. I give space to the energies. I don't just operate on a black and white practical. Everything is a spectrum. To me, that's being holistic.
Okay. And in terms of the people who you work with, or just in general, would you say that the relationship with the self, or the self-love, then is the most important aspect?
Yes, without a doubt. It is. When people come to me wanting an outcome, when they want a thing external of themselves, I do my best to support and guide, if I'm able, what that thing might be in their lives, but they cannot have that until they are in touch with themselves. And the way I kind of describe this to most people is, it's not a bad thing to be self-centered. You have to be self-centered. We have this idea of being self-centered as being self-absorbed and, this gross notion of, oh God, this person is selfish. But if you are not centered on the self, how the heck can you do anything outside of yourself? Anything that we do, and this is like this is what they need to be teaching people in schools, I think. You really want something in life, it has to be an inside out approach. That is what affects long-lasting change. That is consistency. Anything outside in is fleeting. I'll be happy when I have this job. When I'm in this relationship, I'll change. I'll be a better person. But the whole notion of self-development and coaching is, it has to start with you. You are the battery and the conduit. You have to write your own manual to teach the world how to love you. And that's the biggest thing I say to people, especially when we talk about relationships. You have to give someone your manual to teach them how to love you, but you have to write that manual. So if you are not in touch with your values, the vision of the life you want to be living, how you want to feel, what your blocks are, what your self-sabotaging behaviors are, what made you who you are, if you're not in touch with that and you don't have a relationship to that and you don't love yourself in some aspect, how the fuck do you expect anything else to love you? Whether that be a person or an idea or an environment, you have to be attracted to yourself for other things to be attracted to you. And that doesn't mean it's perfect. But yes, I would say that what coaching is bringing someone back to themselves and reminding them you have everything you need to acquire that thing you think is going to make you happy or better. And the process of remembering who you are and why you're awesome usually is the success that they think that outside thing is going to give them. It goes back to being viral. Fame didn't make me happy. It was the process behind the scenes that taught me something. I am who I am because of what I went through, not because of what it gave me. And so, yes, the relationship with yourself has to be number one. From there, everything else, it's just an extension, but you're the island. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's beautiful. I feel like if we go back to the idea of the choices we make, texting a loved one, for instance, it really comes down to the author in that moment. And at that time, the author would be the heart. The heart would be instructed by its feelings toward itself, or its love for itself, and the ability to be patient or compassionate with someone else, or to figure out, now you've hit my boundary. I can't go any further past that. Wherever that balance may lie, but the relationship between the self has to be present and strong in a way to have, I don't want to give a judgment to it, but a qualified assessment or a good response, not just a emotional reaction that then actually causes the opposite. You know, it might send that person farther away as opposed to what we're trying to do, because we're not aware of, well, okay, I could say this is the first thing that I want to say. What's the consequence of saying that? Not really going to get what I want. How would I feel about myself if I do just immediately respond in this way? Later on, I might say, oh, dang, why did I say that? That was really harsh. I didn't really mean that. I was just, et cetera, et cetera. You might get to the point where you can dial back, as many of us do. We replay and replay and replay the essential moments of our relationships, especially in the arguments or in those moments where things really matter. So it comes back to the relationship with self and the self-love, self-acceptance. And I feel like you're saying, we've got to have that first before, whether you call it self-centered or not, whatever you want to term it. We've got to have that before we can really have it for other people. We got to have it for ourselves. I mean, it makes so much sense. But yet, like you're saying, it's not really what we're taught. Unless you're a person that goes out and discovers it, and discovers, oh, that's where the focus has to be. We've got to be able to have that on our own.
I mean, it's the whole notion of you have to put on your oxygen mask before you help people. Safety 101.
Yeah.
You have to help yourself before you're able to help. And you have to fill up your own cup before you can give it to other people. But I really do believe, I mean, my example of like how being holistic as a business owner serves me, it just leaves a little extra space for process. It's not so outcome oriented. And the whole notion of spirituality, holisticness, or any type of, I want to say alternative practice is just this focus on process versus the reward, the outcome, the external. We're taught often in school, do this to get that, but we're not taught why. We're not really taught how, in fact, even. We're not inundated with a manual on how to be ourselves. And what's the whole thing that we're told our whole lives? Just be yourself. No one really knows how the fuck to be themselves.
Right.
I mean, really, like you got to be a pretty strong-willed, strong-minded human being to really know yourself, clock it, remember it, and apply it to all other situations. So in this case, I mean, I say self-centered, but I quickly say, but what I mean is soul-centered. And some people don't like that word soul because they think, oh God, it's getting too heady, it's getting too deep. But really, we all have one. So how can you deny that if you're in touch with that thing, it's probably going to serve you in some way or another? But the more we avoid it, the further we seem to get away from the things we seem to want in sense.
If we're talking about self-love being one of the most, if not the most important aspect in relationship, and we move to the aspects that make up love for ourselves or for our partner, it seems like a lot of us have had a lot of heartbreak. Maybe we've had betrayal, and maybe we've been the cause of it. And we're looking at the balance between the divine feminine in the world and in each individual, the divine masculine in the world, which some might call the patriarchy, but also in the individual now. And the new style of man that is emerging to adjust and evolve. I know I'm giving you a lot, but my question is, how do we learn to trust again?
That's the question. How do we learn how to trust again?
How do we learn? Yeah. I mean, I wanted to give you some context.
No, I love this question. How do we learn how to trust again?
Yeah. After all the hurt and pain on both sides, individually and globally, between masculine and feminine, how do we learn to trust again?
My answer is going to be a paradox. So I'm going to mindfully map this actually as eloquently as I can. We don't have a choice, so we have to choose every day. We don't have a choice as a human species but to trust, because we are not extinct. We are here. We are conscious. In order to survive, we have to trust each other. It is human nature. The choice then comes with how do we do that? What do we need to do? What are the steps? Well, the divine masculine, I would say, is that action. It's that force. It's that doing something about it. The divine feminine is the why, the feeling, the ephemeral. To trust, we have to understand, what does trust mean to each of us individually? What does it feel like to each of us individually? Why do we need it? That's the divine feminine at work. Divine feminine energy by nature is chaos. People think that money is a divine masculine thing. Nope, it's very divine feminine, because money is chaotic. Wealth, abundance is a chaotic energy. How do we harness that, right? Masculine tells us what to do to harness it. But the thing you're harnessing itself is a feminine energy. So to answer the question, you need to understand and make the choice to understand and confront and accept, what does trust feel like to me? How do I know I've got it? How do I know I'm giving it? And then masculine energy, what do I need to do in this moment to align with that, to give it or receive it? So how do we trust? How do you trust yourself? If you don't trust yourself, how can you trust anyone else? It goes back to the same process over and over and over again. If you do something and it makes you feel bad, which I hate using dichotomies, but everyone knows what I'm saying when you feel bad.
Right.
Will you do that thing again? Or will you learn and make a new choice? That's trusting yourself. Will you touch fire to believe and trust that it's going to be hot every time? Or do you trust fire the first time you touch it? It's going to be hot every time. So if we need to trust another, or trust a person, trust something outside of ourselves, first of all, you have to be willing to take the risk. And how do we take risks? Well, how badly do you want the thing? How badly do you want to feel the way you want to feel? Then you have to remember, well, what does trust feel like to me? And I mean this pretty broken down. Does trust look like monogamy? Does trust look like communication? Does trust look like having someone's phone location? But what does that feel like? What does monogamy feel like? It feels like, it feels like the choice to, it feels like devotion. What does knowing someone's location feel like? It's a sense of security. It's a sense of safety. What does it mean to be in conscious conversation? It feels like expansion. But when you're lying, let's say when you're cheating, when you're manipulating, when you're gaslighting, when you're doing the same thing over again, expecting different results, it feels like contraction. It feels like pain. It feels like fear and panic. So how do we trust? Get clear on how you want to feel, the feminine, and figure out what you need to do to feel that way, the masculine. And that is all relationships are. And that is what I'm often telling people when they come to me and they're like, we're having problems. I'm like, well, how do you want to feel every day? Do you want to feel panicked and overwhelmed and anxious and angry? Great. Keep doing what you're doing. You already know what you're like, you figured it out. Do you want to feel at peace? Do you want to feel in communion? Do you want to feel at ease around yourself or another? Great. Here's some things we can do to get you closer to that feeling. And I just want to note that, like, we are seeing a new change in society in terms of like the feminine and masculine energies, right? You know, women are the feminine and men are the masculine. Go back to that example I gave you about money. Women are perceived as kind of chaotic. We are kind of chaotic entities. Sorry, women, I am one. I get to say this. Like we're kind of all over the place, whether we want to be or not. I won't use the word crazy. I will not use that word. But what I will say is that we are wild. If you think in history, what the whole notion of courtship, of marriage, of just gender dynamics, it's the man getting the woman. I'm not going to go so deep into history by saying like, okay, you know, maybe a man used to choose a woman and say you're mine and that's going to be it. But still, it was an acquiring of this thing. You had to harness the woman and have her, but then you have to keep her. You have to make her happy. There's got to be some mutual benefits to the thing. We now are noticing that there might be some benefit to allowing that more wild sort of, I don't want to say uncontrollable, but maybe unbridled energy. The ephemeral is starting to lead a bit more. And when we talk about like the patriarchy, a lot of people don't trust the patriarchy because it's very deeply rooted in do this. But the divine feminine's creeping in saying, feel this. And if you feel this, if you know what you want to feel, you will by nature do something about that. So I'm loving that, like we're learning to maybe trust our well, this is an odd moment to say this, but our hope is to trust our leaders. Our hope is to trust those who govern us. Our desire is to trust our parents, our friends, our partners. How do we do that? Well, how do you want to feel and what do you need to do from that place? That's how I think we learn how to trust again.
That's beautiful.
Good.
With the idea that the male is the doing aspect, how does the male, or all of us, but particularly how does the male support the female empowerment?
Do you want to know what my first instinct was?
Absolutely.
Just shut up and listen. But I want to own the fact that that's definitely a projection of being a woman. I mean, how does the male, we have to distinguish the question a bit more. How do men support women? Stop explaining to us everything. And this is a generalization. This is such a generalization. And I am not a feminist. I just say that first and foremost. I very much support women. I very much will fight for the rights of women. I don't identify with the label of being a feminist. I just believe what feminists believe, that everyone has equal rights, but I don't like the label. I just want to make that clear. Men have a tendency, the male gender species has a tendency to want to solve the issue. You want to fix things. And I'm not saying you, I'm speaking to men. Men want to fix the problem. They want to do something about it. But what do women often want? They want to talk about it. They want to feel it. They want to vent. They want to sit in circles with their friends for hours and just not fix it. They just want to talk about it. So how do men support women? Quit trying to fix the problem and listen to how we got there. Hold space for the symptoms. Hold space for the feelings. Because we will all naturally find our way through. We will all naturally end up where we're supposed to. We will eventually either solve or never solve the problem. But if life is a spectrum, the masculine supporting the feminine would benefit, I believe, from holding space for the experience instead of trying to solve it. Because when we are so focused on solving the problem, we eradicate the emotional process. And without the emotional process, we do not trust. You see how that has to be connected? If we don't have the feeling part of it, it doesn't matter what you do. Because feelings are what motivate everything. Emotions are what motivate everything. Yes, we are hungry. We must eat. But we have evolved into a species that is angry or happy because of that. We no longer are so archaic that we only have to just figure out how to eat. We need to be curious about, why do I get angry if I don't eat? Don't just feed me, because we have to deal with the fact that I was angry and I said things that I didn't mean. And if we don't deal with that, then now you don't like me. And if you don't like me, I don't trust you. If I don't trust you, then what am I doing in this partnership? Suddenly it becomes, oh my God, you don't hear me. You don't understand me. You see how big it becomes from just the simple, but if we maybe just talked about it, we would then understand how we got there so that the motivation is clear on why we're trying to even solve the problem. The beginning of that, I want to be cautious about how I just sort of voice that, because when you start talking about gender, you do have to be careful. The latter of what I'm saying, I think, is the most important part versus me saying anything about men needing to shut up and listen. And that's also a projection. But I do want to say this. We are at a pivotal time in history where we are seeing what might be possible with women in power. Naturally, the feminine energy feels more nurturing. It's just by way. It's just its nature. Masculine is a lot more protective. But I think we have to ask, what are we protecting and what are we protecting against? Feminine is, what are we nurturing? What are we nourishing? What are we giving life to? Literally, women giving life to. What are we giving life to? Men, we need you to hold our hands during that birth process. We need you to be there and hold space when we're losing our shit and we're screaming and the baby's coming out and everyone's going nuts in the room and you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it's chaos. It's wild. It's crazy. What do we need from that moment? We need you to hold our hands. We need your support. We need you to remind us that we're going to get through it. But we have to go through that arduous, crazy, painful process in order to appreciate what comes from it. If we protect ourselves from that process, we forego the evolution that that process is meant to give us. So I think that right now we're in a really beautiful time to see that the masculine can trust that maybe a more nurturing approach might make it so that not everybody is constantly fighting each other.
Absolutely.
Because doesn't everybody just kind of want to be nurtured a little bit more? Nobody wants to be told what to do. Nobody wants to be told what to do. And even if you want clarity and you want some guidance, notice that you don't want to be commanded to do it. You don't want to be demanded. You want to be held. You want to be loved. You want to be cared for in the process of change. And so I think that right now, I don't believe that men should just shut up and listen. I really don't. But I do believe that a more open mind that the unseen part of the process might get us to outcomes versus the day old evidence proof fix it. We have to get clear on what it is we're really fixing. And I think the feminine holds the key to the unseen. And we're getting to it. We're finally getting closer to it. That's a big question, though. I just want to note that. That's a very big question. I don't know if I'm, in my brief period in life, in my 32 years young, am qualified to maybe have such a strong perspective on that. But what I will say is I'm a very masculine woman. I have a lot of power. I get shit done. Sometimes I intimidate a lot of men in my life. So when I trust somebody, then I give them my vulnerability. I expose my feelings. I get softer. I ask you to hold space for me so that I can trust you. But as a woman, I'm also capable of getting shit done. I don't need to be told, good job for doing that. Well, no shit. I did it. And I did it because I did it from a divine place of feeling. I knew how I wanted to feel. I trusted my instincts and my gut. I asked for help. Very feminine qualities that created a monetary, successful, tangible thing.
Wow. Okay. That's great. It's great. I mean, we've chatted about a lot of different things. I think the guts of what I wanted to discuss were some of these relationship-based, individual and collective level issues or topics that are out there in the world right now. And when we discuss them, it is at times difficult to balance between personal past experience or reaction and something that could be taken out of context and where we are right now and where we're going in 3 months from now or 3 years from now. Your perspective at 32 could be way different than 42 and probably way different than when you were 22. And maybe even short amounts of time now. Everything's changing so quickly. I look normally to first principle or the root cause of anything in order to get to some form of change. If you look at the law of consequence, well, where's the cause? We've got to get the divine masculine in its own state of balance. I guess, how do you feel we could heal the divine masculine energy?
Divine masculine energy is rooted in action. It's rooted in kinetic energy being motion, doing.
Sure.
How we might attempt to balance that sort of relates to how I answered the last question, which is getting closer to the why of what you're doing. And it's a tricky question because I could be sort of practical and say things like, well, everyone should be in therapy. Everyone should have a coach. I believe everybody would benefit from having some portal or outlet where they are expressing themselves and processing their emotions and their life experiences so that they're able to take accountability for the choices they're making and thus understand how they are contributing to the world around them. To balance that and I want to say, I don't know if healing is even the right word, but to address that, how do we take more accountability for what we do? Because I think masculine energy inherently is always going to be the motion. It's like, what are you going to do to get the thing you want? If you wake up every morning and you believe that you have to work out and you have to eat healthy and you have to wake up at 5 a.m., okay, you're doing a lot of really great things, but why? If we're not aware of why we're doing it, at some point, you might burn out, you might hurt yourself, or you'll just get sick of it. But the why is like the consistent sort of motivation behind the masculine action. And I mean, again, I don't know if I am qualified to answer this, because like, what do I think we need to do? I think that people need to be more in touch with their feelings so that they can be more accountable for what they do. I think if people just do things thinking this is the right way, or this will get me this outcome, we risk what byproducts come of that. You know, we risk what you leave in its wake by just pushing on the gas. Like, and if you're not careful about the motivation behind your actions, I mean, it's easiest put, power becomes corrupted.
Right.
Action becomes meaningless. You know, individuals believe higher of themselves. Basically, I think what the question maybe that we can answer in a different way is, how do we mitigate the ego? How do we let the ego be there without completely erasing it, because we need it to survive? But how do we hold space for the other part? I mean, honestly, there's a big notion of avoidance and a deep desire for there to be more acceptance. So I think if you can find a process or an outlet that allows you in a safe way to confront aspects of yourself or life that you might be avoiding, I think that we move further away from the toxicity of the masculinity that we all are sort of afraid of or ashamed of, and more so into the more accepting and sort of more productive ways of that feminine energy, which really just comes from acceptance. I think acceptance. Avoidance is very masculine, except feminine. It's the quickest way, I think, to go from solving to embracing, if you will.
I appreciate that. Also, I'm aware of asking a female a question, you know, there's, you know, that's part of what this is. Because even if you say, like the question before, I don't know how qualified I am, et cetera, as a creator and also as an analyst through the course of different decades and different endeavors, to me, everybody's opinion matters, whether they are the expert, they're schooled, they are knowledgeable or not. I'm not going to say that every opinion matters the same in every category, but there's another potential audience. There's a human, there's experience that comes from a sector of our demographic, and all of those have a voice and a particular color and energy to them that can be helpful. So this is huge. You know, 50% of the world, female, 50% male. The masculine or patriarchy that has caused the rift in gender relations over the course of time has affected the feminine. So, of course, it makes sense for us to look at the feminine perspective and opinion on what's needed. It would be a portion of the journey for us in the masculine sense to examine what we can do from outside ourselves. Not just outside ourselves, back at ourselves, but outside ourselves from someone who is truly outside of ourselves.
It's interesting because I'm really glad that you offer that perspective. It actually, I want to reframe what I said then about being sort of qualified. I guess that there's a fear that I'm willing to own by speaking on this topic, because as a young woman, it's easy to sort of be viewed and deemed as an extremist or idealistic, if you will, again, about like the gender roles. I'm a very firm believer that you do need both, that it's equal balance. And I'm very quick to say, and I'm often mirrored back to me, like, I have a lot of really masculine energy, the ability to do things, a lot of power, a lot of fire, if you will. If we think of like masculine as sort of this intensity and, you know, female being this sort of softness, having the ability to, with power and with control, articulate my feelings, I get a lot done. People listen to me. It affects change.
Yeah.
So if I were to use myself actually as somebody quite qualified to speak on this, you know, you want to go into like gender identity. There's been times in my life I'm like, oh my God, I'm a man in a woman's body. I'm like, you know, I'm like the whole notion, like, you know, sorry for any candidates, but I'm like the whole notion of like penis envy, the identity of like courtship, who's supposed to do what. I'm like, I blend all of that. I shock everybody I know by being like, no, I'm the one who did that. And they think, but you're the girl. I think, but yeah, but I knew what I wanted. And I was able to do something about it because I'm in touch with my feelings and I can handle the consequences because I haven't avoided myself or what might happen. To me, that's a beautiful blend of masculine and feminine energy. I'm accountable for the consequences and I'm willing to take the risk to get what I want. That's, to me, I mean, I would like to listen to people who operate that way.
Yeah.
I trust that. And again, being a woman, I don't know. I think it's just as hard being a man. I could say it's hard being a woman. It's hard being a man. It's hard being human.
Yeah.
Taking
absolutely.
the gender out of it. You know, it's hard being human. And my advice to the men of the world right now is like, expand your window of tolerance to do and talk about things that make you uncomfortable. Women, most likely or not, female identifying individuals are going to appreciate your capacity to hold space. Because we have to, as women, hold space for everything. The opportunity to be held in this moment in time is one I don't think anyone should forsake.
Yeah.
Whew.
Good stuff. That's great. There is obviously the other half of the spectrum. We're not going to go into all the different shades right now. We're talking about the two historic genders, but with all the depth that you've just shared on that aspect of healing the divine masculine, let's switch over to the side of the feminine. And let's take a look at, how do you feel we can heal the divine feminine?
It's almost kind of crazy that it might be the same answer in a lot of ways. Don't avoid what you're capable of. For the feminine, how do we heal the feminine? Sometimes it almost feels more out of reach because the feminine is so, I use the word ephemeral. I mean, it's so much more of the unknown, in my opinion. The masculine, again, is sort of the tangible, the material, the grounded energy. Feminine energy is much more sort of unfathomable at times. How do we heal the divine feminine? You might have, that might stump me. I'm actually, very rarely do I not have something intuitive to say about something. But I mean, again, I guess, no, something's coming through. Okay. How do we heal the divine feminine? What's coming through surprisingly to me is asking for help, which inherently isn't too far away from healing the divine masculine. But the divine feminine, if we're looking at sort of a generalization of roles, one might say that the feminine energy feels it, but doesn't know what to do about it. So not being afraid to say that, not being afraid to ask for help, not being afraid to not know what to do and seeking community, being able to trust. How do you see? I mean, again, I'm trying to unravel this in my own head right now. How do we heal? We trust. We learn how to trust again. And how do we do that? We all start loving ourselves a lot more. We start nurturing ourselves. How do you heal the divine feminine? You start nurturing yourself. Because a lot of people didn't get that from the people they needed that from. I mean, inherently feminine process is, let's just say, you gain that love first time in life from your mother. Honestly, despite your circumstances in life, that first act of feminine exchange comes from the mom. Think about Mother Earth. Think about back in the day, all the ruling, like goddesses, they were women. We were provided for by a lot of notion of feminine energy. How do you nurture yourself? How do you heal yourself? How do you love yourself? I mean, that's a tough question because again, like but really, like, think about inherently how we're talking about it. Masculine energy is all about doing something. So how do we heal it? We do something about it. How do we heal the feminine? We feel. We give ourselves permission to feel. Maybe that's it. Honestly, it goes back to hedonism. When I coined the phrase hedonism, I can't believe that didn't come to me immediately. We allow there to be the reclamation of pleasure, the reclamation of purpose, of passion, of meaning. We allow life to be. We don't try to fix everything. We don't try to solve it. We let it be. We hold space. And in a lot of ways, I mean, give yourself permission. Don't call yourself crazy. Don't say you're too much. Don't doubt yourself. All of these things that are so inherent in like the female experience, right? How do I heal that? I own it. I claim it. I reframe it. I let it be and I feel it. I give myself permission to be exactly who I am. And then I look to the masculine to help support that core so that I can do more things. I think that's the truth. Permission to be who you are. And then acceptance in what that might be. Damn. I wish that I'm like, there's the soundbite right there. I'm like, you heal the feminine by giving yourself permission. You heal the masculine by being accountable to what that might become. That's real.
Wow. I mean, there's a couple meta level things here that I can't pass up on because it's too good.
Please.
So you're talking about the masculine wanting to always do and solve and fix. And sometimes that's too much, or has been. And as you're saying this, I'm thinking, well, is that what I'm doing right here with the podcast and the questions and the asking about how do we fix this? Is that
No.
Are you calling out subconsciously what is happening in the moment by the guy creating the questions to figure out how do we do the thing to fix the thing?
No. And here's
No, okay.
why. But I feel like we deserve to answer this. No, because the motivation is not rooted in necessarily fixing anything. It's an attempt to understand and hold space for. I mean, in any case, asking a question might be viewed as, why are you trying to fix it? Versus why are you trying to understand it? And that simple reframe, you being a male identifying individual asking a female about these things, you're holding space and you're attempting to expand not just maybe your knowledge and perspective, but the ripple effect of your desire to expand your consciousness will be, I think, felt and experienced for the people who experience this conversation. So no, I don't think it's that.
That's great. I appreciate that.
To work with Julia, go to imjuliahenning.com or check her out on social media at IamJuliaHenning. And you can find Julia's podcast, The Permission Portal, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I wanted to turn the tables on you and ask you some of the questions that you use in your podcasts and ask your guests to give you the opportunity to express some of the things that may have caused those questions for you, or just hearing so many different answers over the course of time. If you're ready, I don't know. I think you fired them off pretty quickly when I was on the show, but what does it mean to you to live as human?
This is where I really highlight my inability to be a shallow thinker. Because when I've tried to explain this, I can see who gets it and I can see who does not. And there's no judgment either way. What it means to be human, in my experience, is the awareness of being human. And sometimes it's easier to explain what it's not for me to get closer to what it is. It's not just love and what it means to be human, trying things. What does it mean to be human? Growing. Those are all aspects of the human experience. For me, what it means to be human is having the consciousness of human being, of being a human and being aware that I am being a human being, that I am no longer energy. I am no longer spirit. I am no longer just source. I am no longer nothing. I am something. And something is Julia. And Julia does these things. And I'm aware that I'm having the experience of being Julia. So it's a heady concept that being human to me is being aware of my own consciousness.
Awesome.
And loving that, really loving that, being really happy and really reveling, celebrating that, I think is the key point of that. Not just being aware, but really celebrating that. Right. That's what being human is to me.
That's great. What are you a yes for?
This is the part that I think most people answer when I ask them what it means to be human. I'm a yes for really simple things. I am a yes for sunsets and sunrises. I am a yes for really delicious, like yummy, just heartwarming food, homemade food, or just beautiful takeout. I am a yes for driving with the windows down, no matter what the weather is. I am a yes for really only primarily listening to music in the car so that I can feel it. I am a yes for long, luxurious baths. I am a yes for eye contact. I am a yes for asking people how they feel. I am a yes for expressing myself openly, unapologetically, and authentically. I am a yes for sensual, sexual, primal experiences. And I am a yes for truly being unapologetically myself.
Awesome. Well, okay. Here's one I'm interested in asking you. What are you most curious or interested in these days?
Wow. Yeah. Turning it on me. Okay. What am I the most curious and interested in these days? There's two split answers, as there always will be with me. What I'm curious about is who I'm becoming in my more adult era and how it was different than what I thought it was going to be. So I've been really curious about what matters to me, what I'm putting my energy into, how I do things. What I'm interested in lately has been understanding secure partnerships. So you'll kind of see that there's like, I'm curious in the process, but what I'm interested in and what I'm focusing that on is love right now, and developing and nurturing very secure and very pragmatic, but also really profound partnership. And it's been really, for me, I've been really interested in seeing who I am in partnership and what love has come to mean for me. It's a different energy.
That's cool.
Yeah. And just to say that too, just so there's the part of that I actually will know, we'll touch on that, like interested how one thing can work and how one thing does not work. And that can be applied to so many things. The way you do, writing a book, or how you wake up and eat healthy, to how do you live with somebody? How do you love somebody? Why does this work and this doesn't? You know yourself so well until you're in a situation where you're suddenly like, I'm not an expert at this. So I have to learn and I have to understand, and I get to. And that beginner's mindset, I'm really interested in celebrating that beginner's mindset, even though, these are things that maybe you've experienced before in different ways. So yeah, I'm interested in what it's like to be in love.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Retaining the student state of mind, even if you're the teacher, I think keeps us fresh.
Hard.
Or what takes it from 90 to 100, or what puts me past the 50% mark, if it's something that I'm still curious about.
This is actually a really good sum up to everything. What I tend to be curious about is often falls in the more feminine side of things. I'm more curious about the unknown, the unseen, the subconscious, the feeling, the emotional, the spiritual. I don't care about how to change a tire. I don't care about these practical applications that so many people are like so fucking devoted to. So it's really interesting that, you kind of have to be curious about both in order to get anything done. And it's been an interesting process to get more curious about how to do something, the masculine, because of the way it's making me feel, the feminine. Basically taking things to a new level and healing my own masculine because I've healed something in the feminine. And again, there's your sum up. I've learned how to trust myself. So I manifested something that made me feel this way, that supports and enables me to want to change the way I do things. So, and that man holds a lot of damn space for me and listens to me quite often and changes his behavior in support of me, because we're talking about his feelings and we're not avoiding them. So I'm like, dude, again, what am I interested in? The fact that all of the things that we're talking about are always interconnected, and it doesn't matter on every given day. It's all synchronistic. That's what I'm curious about.
Wow. All right. One final question. I so appreciate your time and
it's my pleasure.
Depth of your insight and experience and perspective. I feel like what we're here to do is to build our perspective and experience all the things that we can, celebrate them in the way that you've said is beautiful. So this is up for you to share however much specificity or generality that you'd like, but I'm curious if you have visualized or imagined what your optimal life looks like.
Oh yeah, honey. It's interesting. I see, ironically enough, I've always seen fame, and I've always seen some version of very public exposure in my life. Ironically, I tend not to do things that would elicit that outcome. I tend to run from that, which probably means that's exactly the thing I need to be running towards. In terms of specificity, I see myself in the next few decades of my life continuing to combine all of my skills and facets into one thing. For me, that tends to be events, creating spaces, creating worlds. My bread and butter is speaking to groups, not just individuals, but speaking to collectives. And I see that in a larger way being, one could say the title of motivational speaker, or, a public persona, an author, a podcaster, but just finding ways to share this depth and this insight in a way that's mutually beneficial. I love bringing people together. I love planning things. I love hosting. I love retreats. So for me, the specificity of that is creating symposium, an intentional retreat space. I call it the meow wolf of retreats. So it's a more immersive. I mean, truly, like you think about what that is, it's an interactive, immersive, artistic installation experience coinciding with holistic wellness and mindful retreat. How do I make a retreat an artistic experience? I don't want you to just stop and smell the roses. I want you to walk into a room of roses, completely embodied by the smell, the scent, the vision, and that's where you're going to do your journaling today. Wow. You're going to literally stop and smell the roses. So it's that. I see that as being sort of my next big venture in life, and calling it symposium, this meeting of the mind, this meeting of ideas, and giving people a space and an opportunity to express themselves. I mean, I think that that's my calling in life, giving people a space and permission to express themselves, and hosting that, being at the end of the banquet table while it's happening. I hope to continue writing more books. I hope to continue being in podcasting and voiceover, using my voice for something. And I see myself living a very simple life, wanting very simple things, very comforting things, but in the effort to have that, doing really expressive, artistic, and risk-filled things to get that. So I think that that's kind of my journey. And there's some traditional things I never thought I wanted that I'm sort of opening up my perspective to and seeing what's possible there. But I did not sign up for an average life, and I did not sign up for a mundane experience. And I'd rather be a legend than a lady. So I'm kind of living in the way of that, whatever that might mean for me next. And I just tend to do what feels right at the time. I think planning too far in advance blocks what might be possible. So I've got ideas and I'm going with the flow.
Well, I'm definitely a yes for all of that. And I see you always making the mundane magical regularly. And I appreciate your time and your energy and your input. And congratulations on everything that's coming into your life. It's beautiful.
Thank you. I really do receive that, and I revel at the opportunity to talk about these things because this is my favorite thing to do. So thank you, sir.